to be here talking about the old Riverton store. And on the front page of the little handout I gave you, this whole handout is, most of that is information that came from the National Trust for Historic Preservation when the store was added to the National Registry of Historic Places in 2003. And that's basically all the information they got through research about the store, and how they worked on the nomination to place it on the National Register. So it's basically the history of the store, and more in more detail. I'll just share with you some things about that. But the Williams store is what it was known as on the National Registry, because the original owners, is significant under the National Register criterion for the area of commerce, and Route 66, and it goes from the years of 1926 through 1951, I believe, or 53 or 61. Anyway, there's a time frame which they say Route 66 and commerce on Route 66 was important before, in 1961, when I-44 bypassed Kansas, and no longer there's the traffic coming through. And the store, basically, according to the National Register of Historic Places, is a rare surviving form of 1920. They call it vernacular commercial architecture that is virtually unaltered from its historic appearance. So the store basically has remained as it always has been since it was constructed in 1925. But anyway, and they said, my name is Scott Nelson. I was born in Great Bend, Kansas, and we moved back to Riverton. My father was a school teacher and taught in Riverton originally, and then took a job in Great Bend, and we came back in 1962. And I was born in a couple years before that, so this is basically my home. I've only known this place. But we'll talk about the store now. Leo and Laura Williams were the original builders of the store. They opened the store, and actually they had a building they built in 1923, which was built before 1923, but it was to the east of where the store is located now. If you know where Lefty Van Auker's house is, or used to be where he lived, that's where the original store was. Probably it was, several years old. And a 1923 tornado came through Riverton, a small tornado, but it demolished that structure. And there were several people inside when that happened, but they all got out. And the house next door took the roof off, and things like that along the road in 1923. And so then Leo and Laura rebuilt the store where it is located right now on a 66-foot lot in Riverton. And that point, that road was actually constructed in 1923. That went from Baxter Springs to Joplin. It became part of Route 66 as it is known today. Actually, Mrs. Mitchell, who lived down the street from the store, mentioned to me that when she moved there to this house near the corner in 1915, it was just a cow path. Because the way you made it to the Spring River Inn area was north of the Riverton Post Office, a little side road that went back in there. And then, of course, when they built the bridge across the river in 1923, then it became the way people traveled. And then when Route 66 was commissioned, it became part of the road. But anyway, the store was built in 1925. The first day of business was March 20th, 1925. How do I know that? That's what you find out when you do research. And Elizabeth Rosen was the researcher that was in charge by the National Park Service, did this, finding places of significance on Route 66 across America and in Kansas. And her job was to do the research for the store. So apparently up in Topeka, Kansas, they've got a record of the first day we collected sales tax, because that it all goes back to the taxes, and that's the first day it was recorded business at the store, and so the store is, if you've ever been there and you see pictures in of what I've passed out, it consists of 2 rooms, you know, and a little back room, but the one side run is it's 15 by 40, not a big room, but that's where the store operates in, and the other half was where they lived, just a little apartment, you know, one room with a room in the back and a place where there's a restroom, and originally the restroom wasn't there. They added that later. There were some outhouses in the back, but they lived in that was their home as they ran the store, and their daughter Jane Marie was born in 1929, and she worked at the store, and she would come in actually at the store later in life and come and see, and wanted to see her room and where she stayed. It's my office now on the back side of the store, and there's a set of shelves on the wall, on the south wall in my office. Basically, it's full of things of mine now. Well, my sister calls it other stuff. It's kind of, you know, trash, or get rid of this, it's too much stuff. But she had a collection of telephone insulators that she kept on those shelves, and she'd always come back there and tell me that's what she kept in there. But that she was born in 29, that was her only daughter, and so they ran the store, and they carried all kinds of merchandise, just like we do today, probably more. You could buy shoes there. They sold bulk oil and a lot of things in bulk that people would come buy, and meat products, and they would have produce and things. Because, you know, they weren't supermarkets back in the 20s. There were lots of small stores around in the areas. Riverton actually had the store, and then the corner market by where the Quick Stop is now was a smaller store, and then the old post office was a grocery. And so Riverton had 3, and I know because we went to all of them. I'd go there with my father. Anyway, in 1935, they added the doors out in front of the store, those French doors that wrap around the store. There's 18 of them. And I know why, because when Leo Williams built the store, he worked for Empire District Electric, and he thought maybe he could make more money running a store than he could working for the electric plant. I'm not sure, but that might have been his thoughts. But if you've ever been there in Riverton when the wind's blowing, there's nothing to stop it. And that front porch is pretty much useless when you've got 40-mile-an-hour winds, or 25, 30. You can't do a whole lot of that. You can't put many things out because they'll just blow away. So he had this ingenious, whoever designed these doors, how they open up in the springtime and the summer. You can fold them out and have a nice open area when the weather's nice. When it's not so good, you close them. And they've been replaced. This is completely, at least twice since 1935. Over the years, we replaced some of them. But this last fall, I'm getting ahead of myself, but we replaced the rest of them, or we replaced all of them through a grant. But we'll go on, we'll talk about that later. But they also had the store in the parking lot area that we have now was a regulation croquet court, where you go out and play croquet, and it was even lit at night. And so that was in the parking area, and the foundations of it are still there underneath the parking area. There's just some, big concrete square where they have this croquet court, kind of like we have, putt-putt now, or the miniature golf. But that was something that's the entertainment people did back in the day. The store was also a member of the AG wholesale group started in Joplin, Missouri, that they bought their groceries, and it became AWG out of Springfield, Missouri, which is a big wholesaler. Any of the stores you go now that carry Best Choice or things like that always say that's AWG, and they're huge. Of course, the store was a member of that, and it probably is the last remaining original AG store that's actually in business, even though we don't buy directly from them because you've got to buy a truckload, and that would last a long time at the old Riverton store, a truckload of it. But Anyway, that's 1945. Leo Williams leased the store to Lloyd Paxton, and they ran the store for a while. And they had bought the skating rink in Galena, so they were running that as well. So they leased the store out. And in the meantime, they had bought the house next door and were living in the house directly west of the store. And so the apartment area was probably used just for storage and things like that. And in 1948, Leo passed away. And so Laura resumed running the store after the lease expired with the Paxtons. And it ran as the Laura Williams Market until 1971. She then, and I went there when I was a kid. You know, we go there and get groceries, and Laura wasn't she was kind of not a very tall lady, but just sweet as she could be. Every time I go in there, she'd kiss me on the top of my head, you know, how they do. And she would walk around with, she'd have a note pinned to her dress upside down, you know, and she'd go like this, you know, because if she needed to remember something, that's how she could do that. And so we go in there and we buy, you know, everything you need. You ran a tab. Most people in town would just go in and you'd pay once a week or once a month. And so she had a big old drawer she pulled out with a little checkbook thing or you know, a little tablet, and write down what you got that day. And so and we'd go every day and get something. Mother always got what she needed for that day, for that meal, on the day that she cooked, and she still did that. She still did that all the years because she just sent Dad down to the store to get stuff. Anyway, and there were they sold bologna and a limited amount of lunch meat back in the day, but if Laura sliced it, you got thin bologna. If Rosalie, who worked there, sliced it, it was thick. That's the only way you got it. You didn't say I would like it a certain way. You just got how they sliced it. That's just how it was. And I just, you know, that's what we do. Laura sliced it was thin. Rosalie, it was thick. If you come to the old Riverton store today, we ask you how you like it. We try to make sure it's that way. And let's see, in 1971, Laura passed away in 1977. She's buried in the cemetery in Lowell, is where she is buried. Thelma Ball bought the store from Laura in 1971 and ran it for a short time, and it was called the Ball Market. And then she leased it out to Bruce Sweet in around 1972, and he opened it as Sweet's 16-hour grocery. He stayed open 16 hours, and I don't know. I was probably in like 7th grade, 6th or 7th grade. He didn't have it open very long, and then in 1973, my aunt and uncle they had moved here from Parsons. They moved to Parsons, Kansas, from Chicago. Joe and Isabel Eisler. And they were living in Parsons, and they'd come down here a lot. Joe was a medical salesman. He sold medical equipment for the Wolf Corporation, and it was what they call nowadays, it's just common laparoscopy, where it's not as invasive surgery. He sold that equipment back in the 70s. But he saw the store, and he thought Isabel might like the store. So they bought it from Thelma, and opened it, got it stocked again, and was operated it. And so Isabel mainly was running the store, and we would be helping her, the family and my brothers and sisters, and they had helped people that came in and helped. And but they didn't know exactly what to call it, because it was the Laura Williams Market, and then Thelma Ball had it, and my cousin was traveling around with my older brother, a couple years older than I am, and they were going to different wholesalers talking about getting things supplied for the store. They went up to Arma Elevator in Pittsburgh, used to be a grocery supplier, and the bread companies and the pop companies, whoever, the produce people. And my cousin kept saying, well, it's the old store in Riverton, that old store in Riverton, or the old Riverton store. And so he was trying to think what name to put on it. And my brother said to Andy, he said, well, you've been calling it Old Riverton Store all day. Why don't you just name it that? So though that's how we got the old Riverton store name on it. And the Eislers, they had two sons, my two cousins, and so they called it Eisler Brothers. And that's what it was. Of course, we just called it the store. Isabel always just answer the phone and say the store. And she was one of 7 children. They were all grew up in Parsons, Kansas, my mother's sister. So that's the family connection there. And I started working there in 1974. Just as a kid. I was probably hanging around before that. My mother said if I wasn't at school and I wasn't at home, she would probably find me down at the store, because I just gravitated to that. I wanted to be part of it. And Isabel would show me how to do things, take care of plants, how to water flowers, how to clean things, or how to do a certain job. And she taught by showing you how it was done. She didn't tell you just go figure it out. She showed you how to do it, the right way to do it. How do you water plants, or how do you, just anything you needed to do, she would show you and do it. And she would stay up all night doing things. So she was a hard worker. And she saw the potential of that store in Riverton, the older store. And in those days, people were building new things and tearing old things down. But she saw the value of maintaining this historic structure. And she even saw it in other towns. She's Baxter and Galena and Columbus, all the places, all these historic buildings, how you could put them to use and keep using them. So I say that the store is still there just because of Isabel, because she was determined it not change. And so that makes me kind of that way too. I'm determined to not change it. So over the years they had to move to Texas because Uncle Michael's his business moved into the Dallas area, so it left with me and my siblings to run the store. And then someone became a teacher here, and somebody was a teacher there, and somebody did something else, and then it's just me, and then the employees too. So I just end up working and running it, but that's just how things work out. I'm still there, and we had a lot of help from my parents. Mom did a lot of the book work. Dad, when he got out done teaching school, he'd come do the gopher things, or go to town. We call it go get things, gopher. And he worked at the store until he was 98, when he passed. So after he retired from teaching, so you know how it is. Sometimes good help's hard to find, and Dad was excellent help. He was just a good helper. And so the store basically, let's see. Oh, and Isabel passed in 2007, and Uncle Joe passed in 2009, and I acquired the store, actually became the owner in 2010, and to the current time. So, but some people thought I'd owned it for years, but I hadn't. It was my aunt and uncles. They even thought it was Dad's, so I didn't care if they could say it was his. Let's see. The store is known for, as Patty was talking about, sandwiches. We make really good sandwiches. When Isabel bought the store, they introduced a larger, bigger variety of meats and cheeses in the deli area. They came from Chicago, so they were used to going to a Chicago deli where there's all kinds of things to choose from. So they started carrying more, and that is very popular. We sell a lot of meats and cheeses, make a lot of sandwiches, and Isabel was into flowers, and Moncrief's was pretty close, and Mr. Moncrief's would deliver things up from the Moncrief's in Lowell, and we'd sell their flowers, and Mr. Moncrief would tell me how to take care of things, and just, all these people that are willing to help and share how to maintain things or how to do a good job. And he'd always say to me, he said, Scott, that was a nice display I saw up there at the store, all your flowers, right on the highway, so it was nice, and he was quite a helpful person to deal with. I enjoyed it, working with him. Most of our plants today come from Sedan, Florida, which is about 90 miles west. They're in the top, I think they're in the top 100 in the nation of floral delivery companies or growers. They're number 70. So flowers And then Route 66. A book was written in 1990 by a guy by the name of Michael Wallace. That he lives in Tulsa, and it was it's called Route 66, the Mother Road. And when he wrote that book, people started showing up, traveling Route 66, and they were stopping at the store. And I thought, oh, and they like to buy things, since they're traveling. So we started counting a few things, and they'd sell that, and we'd get more, and they'd buy that too. So the part of the store that was the living area was a little a craft area. We'd have crafts and gifts in there, and start putting some Route 66 merchandise, and travelers start stopping, and they want something to note that they traveled in Kansas, or a little memento. But anyway, once that book came out, Route 66 seemed like really to come alive. And now you see what's going on now. Route 66 turns 100 next year. Lots of activity, lots of tourists. The store's been on television in England. There's a show in England called the Harry Bikers. They're motorcyclists, but they're chefs. So they travel all places all over the world and talk about the food they eat, or sit there and eat it, and they talk about it, and even sometimes, so they came to the store and had sandwiches. And so we were on there, and we get folks from England that come over and say, we saw you on the reruns. It's been several years, and they want to get a sandwich that just like was on the show. And actually there was a lady that came in that was, he had mentioned something about something on the shelf behind the deli. I said, what's this? I said, oh, it's a pack of staples. It doesn't fit anything anymore. It's a staple gun thing that we used to carry back in the 70s, but we don't have the stapler that goes with it. It's just a pack of staples. And they've been for 30 years, they've been hanging on the shelves. And so that year that came out, a lady came in from England, bought her sandwich. She turned around and she said, I'm going to buy those staples. She had, seen on television. She said, I'm buying those before somebody gets them. And so she took those back to England. What use she'll have of them, I don't know. But it was a memento of something she saw, and she wanted to get it. Maybe worth lots of money. I don't know. But anyway, so Route 66 is people every day come in just to see the store, and there's places in Galena and Baxter, and we've got the Rainbow Bridge west of Riverton. That's all these things make Kansas a great experience for travelers on Route 66, and they get to come see an old store that's been running. It's been stated this is most likely the oldest operating grocery on Route 66, since 1925. You can go to a lot of older buildings, but maybe not have been, we've been selling groceries since 1925. Wow. So there's not many places you can go that have been running that long.
That's right.
We've been around longer than Walmart, can you imagine?
Yeah, you're not a metal building.
Or Dollar General. So, but we're still there. So let's see. I told you about that, and it's got all that, and we're back. We're into the 2000s. Oh, and I'll tell you some things. Since we're on the National Registry, we've been able to have some help from the National Park Service. There's a program they've had that's for their cost share grants, and we had a grant in 2006 did replace the roof with a membrane roof, and did electrical work, get this the electric in good shape, and that was a matching grant. We spent about, I think, it was about $9,500 back then. And then in 2016, we replaced the flooring in the living area of the store, which is pine. And when you do anything with the National Park Service and you replace anything, you have to replace it with original, exactly what it was. So we had to do the research, find out, because the floor had been changed over the years because it had rotted out. And so I found a little section of flooring in my office. There's a cabinet there, a built-in glass cabinet, and on the bottom of it you open it up and there's flooring underneath that.
Oh, great.
And it's the original pine, so that's how we found out. And then also the original stain, so you want to stain it the same as it was. So they approved that, and we replaced the floor in 2016, and it's just beautiful. It looks like it's been there forever, and it's in good shape. You could have a barn dance in there. It's so sturdy. I mean, it's just the contractor that did it did a great job. And then let's see, in 2019 we had another grant which paid for tuck pointing, the brick, pulling and doing the work on that. And in 2024, just last year, the National Trust for Historic Preservation had a series of grants on Route 66 for businesses that have been operating, and I applied for that to replace all these French doors out in front of the store. And so we were approved, and I think it was a $15,000 project to do all of that, and they kicked in about 75% of that to help pay for that. And we replaced all the doors. There were still 4 original doors from 1935.
Wow.
And I'm keeping those. I put those in a shed with some other things. I keep a lot of things, and so my family sometimes thinks I keep too many. But anyway, so that project was completed and had them painted and did a lot of things extra. Yes, Patty.
Tell them about the hardware for the new doors.
Oh, hardware. Well, we didn't buy new hardware.
I know.
Yeah, the contractor took the doors down. He took all the hardware off and used it again, because you can't even get that anymore. And the way you just have to come look and see how they're designed, how they're in a roller system where it rolls and they fold up. And but he changed, he saved all that and repainted it and just did a great job. We added some things while we were doing the project. For example, the ice machine in front of the store, it's been run on an extension cord since 1973. And I said, maybe we should run an outlet to that. So we actually did, ran an outlet. It's got its own outlet.
Glory be.
Yeah, things that you just don't think about, and had it painted. And I will tell you one thing is that project cost more than what my aunt and uncle paid for the whole business and the property in 1973. Of course, things go up over time, so it's just part of doing things. So you just think, wow. But I think our community likes our little store, and it needs that store. It's a place where people come in and they see people they know while they're waiting to get their sandwich or buy their loaf of bread or whatever they're needing that we have. And it's a community, and it's nice to go where people know you when they walk in the door and say, how's so-and-so, or well, what's going on, or I'll pray for you, that type of thing. It's just a nice, I don't know if there's any better place to be, unless you've got something you like better to be at. But the store is a place that no place I'd rather be.
Scott,
Yes.
it's also kind of nice to come in your store and you already know what kind of sandwich that you're going to
Well, actually, yeah.
Flyer
You know Lucille and Jack Scott, they were from Riverton. They're both since passed, but their daughter was in yesterday, and she said, "Scott, what kind of sandwich did Dad get?" I said, "He got cotto salami and either American or hot cheese, I think." I just remember, and turkey and provolone. Back over here. And I know a boy that's related to the streets. I think he gets hard salami all the time.
There was just no understanding of it. If I fixed sandwiches for my children at my house, they would look at me like, "You don't love us anymore?" And they would beg to go to the ORS. It was not cool to call it Old Riverton Store. It was cool to call it ORS.
Yeah, that's.
And they wanted a sandwich from Scott's. I said, all right.
It's just something special about it. It's just a special place.
It's the way that white bread sticks to the roof of your mouth.
But it's a family venture. I mean, I'm single, but I have a family, a supportive family, and they're always there to help. if I need something, I mean, we're all, we're working this together. My brother David that passed in December, he was involved in that door project all the way through, and he'd say, you need to do this, have him do that, better fix that, and so you know what I did? I did what he told me. So that's what you do. And my dad, my everybody, this store wouldn't be there. I'm just there. I'm not the reason it's there. It's all these people that came before me. And before I want to draw and give some things away here, but there was a YouTube video coming through, and they have a questionnaire that asks you about businesses on Route 66, and they were saying, well, is there their question is like, who owns it? Well, I'm a man, I own it. They said, well, is there a woman that owns the store, or anyone involved like that, because they like to know that type of information. Well, I said, no, they don't, but I'll tell you something. The original owner passed away in 1948, and his wife owned the store until 1971. She sold it to her daughter's mother-in-law in 1971, who sold it to my aunt in 1973. So basically, 4 women and myself have run this store over the years, and so how they contributed to things. And actually, they always say I never run out of things to say, but my Aunt Isabel she was a trailblazer because she did lots of things in her life. Before even she moved to Chicago, that's where my uncle grew up, and she was a advertising salesperson for the Houston Chronicle back in the late 40s.
Wow.
And you know how she got that job? Because they didn't hire men to do that job. It was a man's job. She went around town and sold display ads to the department stores. And she walked in to see their advertising manager, and she said, I've sold all these ads. Would you like to hire me? And
There you go.
that's how she was hired. So she was quite a lady. She lived to be 87, and she always had good advice for me, and I tried to follow most of it. So anyway, that's any questions?
I got questions.
Okay.
Now, the store was built it opened in 25.
Yes.
And you said that at the time the bridge was built when over the
1923.
Now, before the bridge, was there a ferry there or something?
No, in Riverton there was a bridge up north about it's on Quaker. Yeah, Quaker Road. You go a mile north of Riverton. That going east, there was a bridge crossing there. Mm-hmm. But either it burnt or it went in the 1943 flood. It washed away.
And why was Riverton there? Why did it form a community in Riverton?
Riverton was a Quaker community.
Yes.
And then the Empire District built the electric plant in Lowell, and then they built the major plant in Riverton in the early teens. And so it was basically a farming community. And then of course, when they have a school, and then the community has grown over time. But basically, it's farming, and then a Quaker influence, and an electric plant.
And just a little bit on the general store down south of you. Was that ever open that you know of while you were alive?
At the post office, yes.
Yes.
I believe they closed it in the late 60s, early 60s. Because I'd go in there with my dad.
I know it just sold a few years ago.
Yeah.
And they've redone it.
It's like a Airbnb now.
I've never seen a nicer building of that type anywhere. That one there is as nice as you'll find.
Right, and it was but they lived upstairs, and then they ran their store downstairs.
There were many stores around that same design. The 2 stories with the living quarters upstairs and the post office and all of that. Let's see, I had one more here. Let's see here.
Well, he's thinking.
Dale Card ran that.
Dale Card, yes, on Maxine,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd buy penny candy, and that's how part of the way you learned 5 cents. What does it equal? A piece of candy. If it's penny candy, you can buy it. No.
You did your math.
I was on Rainbow Bridge last week, and almost every time I'm there's a group of motorcycles.
Sure.
I'm a birder, so I'm out there trying to look for birds, and all of a sudden there were like 15 or 20 motorcycles. Rainbow Bridge has people constantly, and I know you get a lot of those.
all over the world, and they come to see that bridge. And that's another side story, but back in the 90s they were talking about closing it off, and we successfully talked our county commissioners into leaving it open.
Thank you.
And the only reason that happened was a guy came in the store from Park County, Indiana, and there are covered bridges in their county. You know, Madison County Bridges, the movie.
I've been to.
And we were talking about that problem. Actually, we were closed, and he showed up after I closed that Sunday night. And I was talking to the guy, and he said, "You call my county commissioner. He'll tell you how you keep a bridge open when you build a new bridge next to it." And so we presented that to the county commissioners. There's more to the story, but they went along with it. And you see what we have out there, and aren't you glad they did?
Yes.
Because, yeah.
Scott, were you not rather instrumental in getting that bridge on the National Historic Register?
No, it was part of the state of Kansas did that. Because
Your name's in a lot of that paperwork, cause I've read all those forms that were filed. You can deny it, but you got mentioned a lot.
well, anyway, the bridge was already on the National Registry when we were dealing with that problem, but the state of Kansas, when they were dismantling a lot of those bridges, they knew they needed to save some of them, you know, historically. So that one is one of them. There's one in Fort Scott, Independence, John Mack Bridge in Wichita. You know, that architecture, they did save some of them. So
I had
Thank you for your efforts.
one other question. These old stores all around the counties, 2 counties that I've studied a lot here, all the old stores used to sell dynamite. Did they sell dynamite at that store?
I don't know about that. I didn't see it in any. I didn't see it in any of the things I've read. So.
Yeah. No, people used to go into like all the
Right.
Well, that
store,
might
you
have
just
been
buy
for
dynamite.
mining.
Mining.
And Riverton wasn't a mining community,
Yeah,
so that might be why
Why,
they didn't
yeah.
sell.
but you didn't have any
You
knowledge.
didn't
of
sell that. And you didn't sell alcohol in Riverton either.
Quaker, the Quaker.
No, and that's another story about one. Anyway, so
So,
yes.
whenever I'm looking for a very unique gift, I love to come to your store, and my husband has several of your items from your store.
Well, thank you. It's just a nice place. There's no place I'd rather sit of an evening.
He's sporting his new 100-year shirt, and they have those at the store.
Just
Just in case.
sit on the porch in the evening, the sun's setting just right, a cool breeze. It's just so peaceful, you know. It's just so, you know, it's and the traffic going by. It's just a beautiful sight. It just really is, you know. So, as I say, there's no place I'd rather be. So. Anything else?